Hey, and welcome to Barker's Bikes. In this video, I'm going to be teaching you how to do a full lox turn from a stop on a motorcycle with very minimal leaning. Sound impossible? Well, without the right technique, it probably is, but after this video, you'll know what I know, and I know how to do full lock turns. So, if you want to be one of the few people in your riding group that can control your motorcycle at slow speeds and do one of these full lock turns, then keep watching. So what is a full lock turn? Why do you need to know how to do it, and how do you do it? So a full lock turn is whenever you fully turn and lock your bars, you pin them in that full turn position, either to the left or to the right, and you complete a slow speed maneuver such as a slow speed U-turn, or for the sake of this video, a full 360. And the purpose is you have bragging rights. You can show your buddies that you can do something they can't. No, I'm kidding, but seriously, there's very few people that can pull this off and make it look smooth. But that's probably, and mostly, it's not skill level, it's more technique, and that's what you're going to learn today. So how do you do it? All right, let me get turned around, and I'm going to start explaining it to you. I'm going to do a bit of a dry run first, okay? All right, so I'm going to explain this first from this angle here, from facing me straight on. So what you're going to do is you're going to mount your motorcycle, put your kickstand up, and you're going to put your right foot, I know it's backwards for you, you're watching this on camera, you're going to put your right foot on the right foot peg or right floorboard, okay? Follow me so far? All right, just getting started. All right, so you're going to apply the rear brake. You're going to press it, but you're not going to stand on it. You're just applying firm pressure. From that point, you're going to pull the clutch lever in. We're going to start the bike up, okay? After the bike is running, we're going to give it about right under 2,000 RPMs. We're going to let the engine purr somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 RPMs. So you want to have that engine RPM between that range. If you get too little of RPMs, you'll stall the engine. If you have too many RPMs, you're putting increased stress and strain on the clutch and rear brake. So that sweet spot for me is usually around 1,800 RPMs. So you got the bike running at this point, okay? You've applied throttle and you've got your RPMs under 2,000. So at that point, clutch is pulled in all the way, okay? So you're gonna turn the bars all the way, whichever direction you choose. It seems that most people like to do left turns because they seem to be a little easier. Something about having and doing a right turn when the throttle is kind of like right here, kind of pinned under you right here at the gas tank, they can be a little harder. Also, if you ride a Harley and you've got some ape hangers, it's going to be a little harder, especially if whenever you do a full lock turn, you're having to reach way up like this. So just things to consider. So back to where we were. We got the clutch pulled in, we got the motor humming at just under 2,000 RPMs, we got the bars turned all the way to the left. What you're going to do is gently let out the clutch lever until you start entering the friction zone. So the friction zone is that point where the bike starts to want to go, starts to pull. You've still got the rear brake applied, so the bike, it can't really take off on you, okay? So you're slowly releasing the clutch lever until you start entering that friction zone. You'll know you're entering the friction zone because you'll hear a tone, the engine will either bog down just slightly, you'll hear a tone change in the engine, or even more so, you may feel the bike wanting to pull you forward. That's the point you need to be, all right? So this is the hardest point for most people. You feel the bike wanting to pull, you feel the bike wanting to start moving forward. You're going to slowly release your foot from the rear brake. Now, at this point, the bike's starting to pull, right? You've got the RPMs just under 2,000, and you're entering that friction zone. And once the bike starts to pull, you don't move your fingers anymore. You're in the right part of the friction zone. All you want is that initial pull in the friction zone. Keep your RPM steady. So you're keeping the clutch and the RPMs at that steady pace. And now you're going to start letting your foot slowly off of the rear brake. So once you do that, the motorcycle is going to start inching forward. As soon as it starts inching forward, you're going to put that left foot up on the foot peg. You're going to continue to keep the bars turned, keeping the throttle and the clutch in the exact same position. And from this point forward, and throughout the maneuver, you're controlling the speed and everything with the rear brake. So if you get going too fast, what's going to happen is the bike wants to lean towards the outside of the circle, this direction. So that means you're going too fast. Well, what do we do when we go too fast? Apply a little more rear brake. So if you apply a little more rear brake, the bike will slow down and it'll probably want to start leaning to the inside of the circle, this direction. So if you're leaning to the inside of the circle like this, then you want to release a little bit of the rear brake. So you're kind of balancing the speed of it. So if you give too much rear brake, then the bike is going to slow down too much and you're going to lean towards the inside of the circle like this. If you let your foot too far off of the brake, you're going to get going too fast and you're going to lean this way. And instinctively, if you start leaning too far this way and you can't recover it by tapping the rear brake, just straighten your bars and the bike will stand back up. And of course, you'll pull your clutch and let off on the throttle and you'll stop. And then you get to reset and try again. So there's going to be a lot of trial and error to this. So let's do a live demo and I'll show you how it looks. All right, I've mounted the bike. Kickstands up, key switch on, put that right foot up on the foot peg and apply the rear brake. Start it up, got the clutch pulled in and I'm in first gear. All right, so at this point, I'm going to slightly apply the throttle and I'm going to turn the bars in the direction that I'm wanting to go. So I'm going to do a full lock turn to the left, so I turn my bars all the way to the left, slightly applying the throttle, then I slowly start letting the clutch out until I feel the bike starting to pull. I feel it now, it's starting to pull. And then what I do from this point is I release my foot from this rear brake and the motorcycle is going to want to start moving, just like this. All right, and so quite honestly, once you get moving, once you get that foot up and you're both feet up and you're moving forward, that's where the fun begins. All you've got to do at that point is just control the pressure on the rear brake. If you release the pressure, pick up speed. Put more pressure on it, it's going to slow you down. If it slows you down, you're going to tip more towards the inside. If you need to speed up and stand the bike up more, let off pressure, and it's just like that, just like that. All right, if you're still here, thank you. I'm gonna give you a bonus tip for hanging out. So this skill that you just learned with this 360 slow speed maneuver actually works on hill starts as well. So whether you're starting on a steep hill or a gradual hill, I do this same technique whenever I'm out in traffic or wherever I am. So you're going to do the same thing. Keep your rear brake applied. I always keep my right foot up, left foot down whenever I'm stopped in traffic because the clutch, throttle, and rear brake is where I get all of my control, all of my stability from. So I want that right foot to be up. It makes hill starts a non-issue. So let's assume right here I'm actually stopped on a slight hill. It's just, you may not can tell it in the camera angle, but we're slightly facing uphill. So I'm going to have my right foot pressing on the brake and the motorcycle, it would be running. Of course, we're in traffic and I am ready to go. So I'm going to apply throttle. I'm going to get the RPMs up to around 2,000 RPMs, maybe just a little more. We're on a hill, and depending on the grade of the hill will depend on how much throttle I'm going to apply. So usually that's between 2,000, 2,500 RPMs as I'm gradually starting to move. So got the RPMs up to 2,000 or 2,500 RPMs, and I'm slowly letting the clutch out while still holding my foot on the rear brake. Just like when you're practicing those slow maneuvers that I talked about earlier, you're going to have a change in the motorcycle. You'll hear the engine start to bog just a little bit, or this particular bike, it has a little bit of a shudder. I know the clutch is engaging because I feel this little bit of a shudder. Well, that's my cue to start slowly releasing my foot off of the rear brake, just like I explained earlier. And as I'm doing that, I'm slowly letting the clutch lever out even further, and in combination, coming off of the rear brake slightly, and while slowly letting your clutch lever out, keeping your RPMs up. So if the RPMs start to stall a little bit, and on a steep hill, they'll start to bog just a little bit, well, you're going to compensate for that by adding a little more throttle. And doing that, you're gradually releasing the rear brake while gradually finishing through the friction zone. Before you know it, you're off and moving. And you're not off and moving like, you know, all unstable and like that. You'll take off as straight as an arrow, and it'll look good, it'll look smooth, it'll look safe, and it'll definitely look like you know what you're doing. In the MSF course, and a lot of riders are taught to, you know, do the little duck walk thing when you start out. That's actually a terrible idea, because if you were to be hovering your feet slightly above the ground, this foot should already be up covering the rear brake, because that's what's keeping you still and what's keeping you stationary on that hill. I don't like to hold myself on a hill with the front brake. The reason being is it's kind of difficult to try to hold yourself on the hill with a front brake and manipulate the throttle at the same time. It would be much easier just to hold yourself with that right foot. So this whole hovering your feet thing, a lot of people don't necessarily need to do it anymore. They do it out of habit. My dad's been riding my entire life, and he still hovers his feet slightly above the ground when he takes off, and my kids like to poke fun at him for doing it. But you know, your feet, you don't want those to get, you don't want to touch down while you've started moving, because a lot of the guys that are hovering their feet above the ground, they're already moving at such a speed that if they were to try to put their feet down for balance, they're just going to be sucked up under the saddlebags if you ride a Harley or a bagger type motorcycle, or even sucked up towards the rear wheel. That's just a bad place to be. So I don't advise hovering your feet above the ground as you start off. And I also would like to encourage you to get your feet up and on the foot pegs as soon as possible. If you use this technique like I just explained on how I start off on a hill, you're going to be able to start off quickly and smoothly, and you won't have to worry about it. There's been several instances where in the police world, in our training, one of the exercises is called a 90-degree pullout, and the motorcycle, your bars are pretty much turned all the way to the left or to the right, depending on which direction you've got to go. And you've got this 90-degree, this T intersection of cones, and you've got to be able to make the turn from a stop, make the turn turning right or left. Well, the guys, especially when you're new and you're trying to learn to balance this 950-pound Harley, a lot of guys, when they first start off, they want to put their foot back down because they feel the bike starting to lean over. Well, if the bike is moving and starting to lean over, what should they have done? Well, they should have just applied a little more clutch and the motorcycle would have stood up. But what they'll do instinctively, they want to put their foot down to catch themselves. Well, you're moving, you put your foot down and it gets pulled under the bag. Sometimes these motorcycles, these Harleys, they've already got them leaned over to a point that they can't recover from it. So when they put their foot down, it gets pulled under the bag and then the bike falls over on it, and you can see how that can make for a very bad day. So if this kind of stuff, if this motorcycle skills, safety, these type of videos are for you, I've got another one that's talking about this exact same topic. It is the #1 key to successful U-turns on any motorcycle, and it goes hand in hand with this here. This channel, the whole purpose of this channel is so that I can help fellow motorcycle enthusiasts make it home safe on their next ride. So if that sounds good to you, subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. Thanks, guys.